Hi, I'm Elena Georgiou. Welcome to the Global News and another episode of the Trauma Recovery Series. And today it's the 6th episode, and the topic is feeling safe. And I want to welcome Nicole and David. Hello, Nicole.
Hi, Elena. How are you?
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
I'm good, thank you. I love your background tonight.
Yes. And yeah, and I'm feeling safe because it's like somebody's holding me in their hands.
And
Hello,
all the fairy
David.
lights around you.
Yeah, it's nice. Hello, David.
Hello, Elena, once again.
All right, so we're going to start this great topic, and I'm feeling very safe here with the company of Nicole and David. So I'm going to share a little story today from my story, from feeling unsafe and becoming safe. And then David and Nicole will join in this discussion. So we feel insecure, and the reason is disconnection from ourselves, and we cannot connect or feel a sense of belonging or unconditional love for others when we don't feel all that within. And when I was a child, I inherited the generational trauma of several generations, resulting in me experiencing violence from my parents, ex-husband, and one of my adult sons. And my ex-husband had the same in his family, so we manifested each other due to trauma bonds. And I was affected, and my children were also affected. And the result was tragic. And I had to leave and distance myself from my family because I wasn't feeling safe. I stayed in my comfort zone, not wanting to move forward and heal after decades of domestic violence. And of my 3 children today, I'm only connected to one who went through what I went through and still stays in his comfort zone, resulting in mental health issues. And my other 2 children, unfortunately, were brainwashed against me and are not connected with me, nor do we have contact anymore. They have not escaped this generational trauma and refuse to heal or connect with their mother, me, or to forgive what happened. And they are currently holding on to this generational trauma, feeling insecure and confused. I tried to help them, but they closed the door on me for several years now. And the pain was unbearable. I just can't describe it in words. Still, when I recognize what I have been through, I studied my family tree 5 generations before me, and I found a pattern, accepted it, and healed myself without blaming my ancestors or anyone participating in. And by changing my story and becoming who I am today, I hope to bring healing to my children and the generations after me. And by breaking through this generational trauma, I have given new hope for change in my children's lives and all that will come after them. So, what is this generational trauma that we have inherited, and what process is happening subconsciously, and how to heal in a way to feel safe with ourselves and others? So our traumatic experience have made us disconnect from our true selves and others. So we shut down all trauma memories to reduce fear, anxiety, and shame. But we need to return to ourselves and focus and take back control and responsibility for healing our lives. We need to face what is behind this trauma event, identify it, and how we react to it. In other words, find the pattern and recognize what is happening to accept and forgive ourselves and others who took part in this event and move on in our life's journey. So our parents, grandparents, and ancestors have had traumatic experience similar to what we have now. And as a result, we have inherited instinctive patterns of behavior and cognition, images, thought processes, memories, and experiences. In addition, trauma can leave a chemical mark on a person's genes, which can be passed on to future generations, and it's called generational trauma. And healing and taking the necessary steps to deal with this past trauma is needed to rewrite our new stories, which will help us eliminate the negative expectations assigned to us because of this generational trauma. Additionally, because of our upbringing and the socialization we have received, some of us have also been traumatized by that upbringing. And what is this process of genetic past trauma? The method you carry out subconsciously is repression. Repression is hiding the feeling of pain or fear that has happened to you. Not showing this emotion is when you avoid uncomfortable feelings, thoughts, or memories out of your consciousness, and you do not take responsibility for what is happening. And the unconscious lets you forget all that hurt you, and all of this is done out of fear of damaging your positive self-image. And suppression is the result of this situation. By hiding this feeling, it becomes a reaction, and you push uncomfortable thoughts, feelings, and memories out of your consciousness. You're not aware of what you're doing, and all of this happens because it's painful, and you don't want to deal with it, or you don't know how to deal with it, or what to do, so it shuts down. And this all leads to mental health problems, chronic illness, confusion, or insecurity. And by shutting all down, trying to forget what happened, or stopping thinking about past events, we unconsciously suppress our emotions and blocking or avoiding unwanted thoughts that are traumatic, and we don't know what we're doing. In reality, we hide behind our smiles. We hide our pain, scars, sadness, fear, frustration, and anger, and hatred. And we are screaming inside, and we don't show it. And we try to forget or not forget of painful or unwanted thoughts by shutting down unwanted thoughts. So we close our thoughts cautiously, and we can attract what we don't want when we repress emotions and memories. So we attract people and situations we don't want because of this process, and we are unaware that we're doing this. And it's not in our knowledge that we're doing it. But if we notice and accept these events, and if we decide to face all these events of past traumas, we will stop attracting what we don't want. So it's better to face and accept what we feel, heal all that hurt us. Also, with healing, you will feel safe and have a sense of belonging, connection, understanding, and unconditional love for yourselves and others. And you will also recognize what is wrong in your life and change it. Stop the repeating pattern in your life by sending love and forgiveness to you and others who took part in that event pattern, while learning the lesson behind it, and then releasing all that hurt you so you can feel safe moving forward in life with courage. And through individuation, we will unite the good side with our destructive or dark shadow self. So we're not only good people, we have a dark, wrong side also. And this process is the big picture we want to achieve, the integration of the shadow self and gaining authenticity and becoming whole. And in the first half of our lives, we're doing our best to develop a healthy ego and seek to meet our basic needs. The second half of our lives is turning inward to a deeper part of ourselves, and this process is called individuation, as Carl Jung stated. And the method of individuation begins from childhood to a journey of self-discovery, and one consciously and gradually integrates the unconscious aspects. So the part that we usually refuse to conform is one's personality as a whole. So the purpose of human life is to experience the coming together of the whole, to fully integrate and make conscious of everything about ourselves that was hidden in the shadow. So meditating daily is one of the most powerful tools to make meaningful changes in our lives and create abundance or manifest the change we want. And when the mind is still, we can unlock that door that can lead us, to change. And some argue that meditation is the only way to achieve this. So I use this practice daily and invest my time with other tools alongside meditation, like spending time alone, taking long walks near the beach, and sitting in silence, praying, counting my blessings, enjoying going out with my friends, dancing like nobody's watching, either in my home by myself or when I go out with my friends, going to the gym, writing in my 7 journals, or letter writing to release unwanted thoughts or events that might happen that day. And I also have a set of lists, my creation list. And I have also created my vision board, which includes all my desires and how I want my life to become. And it's the big picture I want to track now. So I might go back and replace images or words because I write affirmations on my pictures. So if you visit me, you will see all sorts of pictures and affirmations written there. It inspires me to look at them daily and read what I wrote. It's about the love life I want to manifest or the next step in my career path. So all of these daily practices have helped me heal and reveal my authentic self. And daily writing helped me heal, become an author, storyteller, and to change my story and rewrite a new one. And becoming the first success story in my family history means rewriting narratives and breaking free. And becoming a researcher also helped me understand why and what happened in my life and implementing theories into practice, write my books, my stories, create workshops, become a speaker, and provide my services, and the one led to the other. So these daily practices help me feel safe to be myself, stand out in my naked truth, and express myself creatively. And my friends and I are a perfect example of feeling safe. We manifested each other because we all feel safe sharing our moments in a safe space of mutual understanding and respect. And we have something in common. We love dancing. And also David and Nicole join me in this discussions here every week in my channel. And we all feel safe here and sharing our knowledge and wisdom in this safe space of understanding and respect between us. And we are like-minded, although we come from different backgrounds, countries, cultures, educations, careers, lifestyles, and life stories. So to feel safe with someone else, you must first feel safe within. And the same thing goes when you want to attract love, you must become love. Or if you want to attract happiness, you must become happy yourself. So I said to myself at some point to encourage me to feel safer, Elena, you're the love of my life, my best friend, and the most precious person in this world. And even if everyone I ever loved went away, I have you, and that's enough. And by saying all this to myself, I felt more than enough and safe to become who I have become today. And this was the first step I took. And the next one was feeling safe in manifesting new friends and new collaborators for my projects, or hoping at some point to manifest true love and not love with pain, since I have become one now, and to fulfill my heart's desire, or reunite with my children if they have become all this that I mentioned for me. Because my hope is for them to return to me healed and become their true selves, their true authentic selves, and to meet them in a place of love, forgiveness, connection, and understanding. And they have to feel safe too, so we can be in this place together and feel connected and secure. And in reality, we are all one of the whole, and love conquers all. And that's what I learned in this lifetime. And another thing I learned from this life is that when others disapprove of who you are, you cannot connect with them. and they can connect with you even if you feel safe within, standing or walking alone. So they feel threatened to see you as a powerful being, and you're just frustrating their demons, which you don't have to deal with. And it is their issue to deal with it. That's why there is this connection. And if you decide to feel safe, you can see these kinds of people vanishing from your life because they feel unsafe within and cannot be around you because you feel safe and they don't. So the best advice for you is to stay as you are and hope they will find their way out of their darkness. So work on feeling safe, peaceful, serenity, and unconditional love, and you will receive the same back to you. And feeling safe is when you dare to be seen. Being vulnerable in a relationship is letting your guard down to connect raw and openly. It's the courage to be loved and open to love. And transparency of the soul is when you're honest with others about your genuine thoughts and feelings. So if you're afraid to connect fully and trust, love, and can open up and express your inner feelings, transparency can happen. So you need to deal and heal with these issues of the past, the stabbing you received, the manipulation, the hurt, and stop hiding who you are and be open to revealing your true self. So don't be afraid to destroy your positive self-image of the firm, courageous person you have become by hiding your sensitive side so that others can see you in your vulnerability, and surround yourself with those who will not feel ashamed to show you who you are, not to show who you are, and even if that means showing your vulnerability. And also surround yourselves with those that generously and genuinely care about you. They accept you as you are with all your flaws and positivities. And if you can do that, you can genuinely love transcendently and authentically. And that's when you feel safe within and become powerful. So this is what I wanted to share with all of you. And I hope you liked my story from feeling unsafe and becoming safe and the explanation in between. And I want to invite now David to share his part, his insight, his knowledge into feeling safe.
Yeah, well, you touched on so many points there, right? So I'm pulling all these different pieces, and there's one word that kind of stood out: the idea of individuation. And that's, I think that's really crucial. Historically, I think our cultures were set up to actually make that happen. Let's say pre-20th century, our cultures were set up with coming of age ceremonies. There are ceremonies for different states, different parts of our evolution as a human. And these ceremonies would actually help us move towards individuation. Like it began in our, around puberty, when it was the first experience of an existential crisis, where it's the first time we realized that we're not wired to our mom and dad. We had the opportunity to look at the world, and there's all of a sudden all these possibilities, and there's a kind of blank slate of potential in front of us. And for a young person, and we've all gone through it ourselves as teenagers, and of course with having children, we watch them go through that process of breaking away, because as this hormonal shifts come in the body, they become self-aware, and then they become self-aware, and there's all these possibilities and so much confusion that goes along with it. So I think because historically we actually had cultures that really assisted in the development of individuation, from puberty onward. Because we don't have that anymore, because it doesn't exist in most cultures, I think that's really created a huge problem for everyone. Because again, the world's always been tragic, right? The world's always been challenging, right? There's never been a point in time where we would go to bed at night without something, without running the risk of dying from something or having some sort of challenge. I mean, Mother Nature wanted to kill us every turn. Right? We struggled with keeping ourselves fed. We struggled with keeping our babies alive. We struggled with warfare from neighboring tribes. Life's been really kind of full on for humanity for a long time. So it's not like it's tragedy and trauma is new. But what we had historically, I believe, was these really beautiful cultural and spiritual practices that grounded us, that gave us something on a daily basis to really orientate us to this higher set of ideals. And again, so many of these things you spoke about already. And so now we're scrambling. We're trying to ad hoc and put all these pieces back together in an effort to recreate what our ancestors have been using for thousands of years, which created extraordinary civilizations and language and art and culture, moved us all the way forward, which we simply so carelessly dismissed in the 20th century and beyond. But to continue on that thought of individuation, I found a really unique way to understand it at a very very pragmatic and simple level, because I'm a man. I want to get out my screwdriver and take things apart and see how it works. And but what was fascinating is that over time, there's a couple some similarities in language wording started kind of showing up inside my consciousness. And a funny one was, or not funny, but interesting one was around strength training. So I've been a natural bodybuilder for as long as I remember. And so one of the conversations you'll always hear, if you have a bodybuilding coach, they'll talk about, mind-muscle connection and being able to feel the muscle, right? You set your body up in such a way. So if I'm going to target a certain body part, I'll know if I'm getting that body part right because I will feel the expression of the muscle, right? I'll get the experience of the muscle in my body. If I'm targeting let's say I'm targeting my bicep, and I only feel it in my forearm, immediately I'm given the emotional distinction between right and wrong. It's supposed to be in my bicep. I know what that feels like because what I did over a period of time is I practiced this exercise enough times, changing my posture, changing my alignment, and being very focused on getting the experience of that one muscle to become a dominant experience inside my body, right? And so over time, I could lift heavier and heavier weight and became stronger because I was so aware of the feeling of alignment, of stability, and of being specifically connected to that particular muscle. Now, what does bodybuilding have to do with psychology? Well, it's the same language, right? So with the process of individuation, we're assuming that there's going to be the adoption of a philosophy, a moral compass, a way of being in the world. Now, this is an idea up here, but it's also it's an embodied idea, or it certainly should be an embodied idea. So if we have a set of values or character traits that we choose to live by, well, there's one thing knowing right and wrong up here, but you can actually experience the difference inside your body. And it's paying attention to it at the simple level of, well, what I often ask my clients is that if you were to pick two to three character traits, 2 to 3 values or virtues that if you live by them on a daily basis, that would change the trajectory of your life going forward, what would they be? And so, for example, I had chosen courage, truth, and compassion as my three primary virtues. And these are virtues I'm trying to live up to. It's not that I live by them 100%, but they're my ideal, right? My vision in the sky that I'm aiming towards on a daily basis. But I understand what they mean, the impact they're going to have on my life. But more importantly, I know what they feel like inside my body, which means I also know what it feels like when I'm not that. If I'm not feeling courageous, I know instantly that I need to check into exactly, why the loss of courage? Why am I responding the way I am? So I'm not so much interested in the problem. I'm more aware of my reaction. And so I'm not focusing on the outside, I'm focusing on the inside. Why has courage suddenly left me? What just happened to create the feeling of worry and anxiety? So I'm not trying to find the person or situation responsible. I'm trying to look inside. So why did I lose that? Right? If I'm feeling less than truthful. So if let's say my response is to say something or even internally, that's not true. Maybe it's a judgment that I'm casting at somebody for something they said. And so I have this little sarcastic remark that I keep to myself. But I watch the language come up and I'm going, that's not true. So the idea of telling a lie actually is a feeling inside. So I'm not looking to the person outside of me. I'm looking to inside of me to see, why was I telling a lie? Why was I not being truthful? And so when you practice the art of these virtues, you practice the same way you practice the art of building a muscle. It's actually the same response inside the nervous system. you can do exactly the same thing, which said it was so much more, for me, it was way easier because it became less philosophical and more neurological. It was more something that I could practice inside my body. And, you think about it, we have these phrases, and I think I've mentioned this once before in different conversations. The phrase that saying, well, Elena, that's so uncharacteristic of you, you behaving this way right now, but totally characteristic of you if you're 14. Right. So when we say that's so uncharacteristic of somebody, what we're actually speaking to is a change in character of the person we're observing. And the person that's having that change of character, what they're doing is they're actually using an old pattern of behavior attributed to a much younger version of themselves that for whatever reason got provoked in the middle of a discussion or an argument. And that persona got pulled forward unconsciously. The brain kind of put that persona on, and now they're behaving through the lens of a younger version of themselves at the same level of emotional maturity of who they were when that experience first occurred. So I'll give you an example. I almost drowned a few times in my life. First time when I was 4 years old. So, so I used to joke with people, once I understood these connections, that if you hold my head underwater today, now I'm not 4 years old, I'm about, 200 pounds heavier than I was at 4 years old. And if you hold my head underwater, I might break your femur, right? Why? Why would I react so strongly? I can swim. But if I'm put in the situation, the environment is similar and the uncertainty is similar to what I was experiencing when I was 4. The emotional context of the 4-year-old rushes forward into my brain and it takes over. The fact that it can actually hijack my executive center of my brain. And I'll behave with the emotional terror of a 4-year-old child in the body of a man, right? And that's just a very powerful, quick reaction. But again, once I began to understand that, the idea of you're not acting, you're totally out of character, I realized it wasn't just an interesting phrase saying somebody's being odd. It was actually a very specific declaration that this person was actually pulling memories from their past and throwing that on like a suit, like an article of clothing, and they were behaving to the emotional maturity of a child. Again, have you heard the expression, like Nicole, stop being so childish. And why would I say that? Because perhaps she's acting in a way that's not consistent with the way she shows up, day to day. And so it's so odd, and the behavior is so different from what we normally experience with somebody that we actually use that phrasing, right? And if she's acting like a spoiled little 11-year-old child, you'll see that in the behavior, which is so out of context with the adult I'm normally dealing with. And so language is so powerful. We just sit back and listen to it. It's diagnostic. That's what I like. It's so diagnostic. And if as adults, if we're willing to pay attention, right, in here, because we're responsible in here. Before we started this conversation, we talked about this research that was done, I think it's at the University of Tel Aviv, and they were looking at the research is around something called affected reality. And affect is the clinical term for emotions, right? So, we like to use big words. Makes me appear much more intelligent. Next time I'll be wearing glasses. But affected reality really looks at the fact that how I'm feeling can actually change in my perception of what I think I'm seeing. Right? It can really alter reality. And so this research was actually looking at magistrates, so judges, right? So the gentleman in the black robe sitting on this bench, towering over you, and if you're the person coming up to the judge looking to be paroled perhaps that day, and it was just before lunch, you had an 80% chance of not being paroled. And the reason being was that low blood sugar changed. So, low blood sugar for not eating, right? I've been judges up early in the morning. He's been listening to just these chaotic human beings all day and dealing with this very stressful job of being able to be impartial, right? To be judiciously impartial, right? Even somebody at that level of training, imagine what it takes to be a magistrate, to be a judge. Even at that level of intelligence and awareness, low blood sugar distorted their sense of reality and distorted their decision-making process. Now that's really quite something to think about. If that happens at that level of intelligence and that level of preparation, what about for the average person, right? Who's just trying to make it to the end of the day and they're exhausted, trying to pay the bills, trying to keep the lights turned on. so we all struggle with that. We all struggle with the emotions kind of running havoc, and we feel like we're out of control. But I think one of the most important things that we begin to look at is actually begin to observe our emotions, right? Elena, you had talked about several times about integrating the shadow. And the shadow is actually paying attention to the emotional state that you're in that perhaps you'd rather not be in. So if I'm angry with my child and I say something in a turn, or if I respond, even if it's not vocal, even if it's just the way I'm experiencing myself inside in relationship to my child, I will take time and pause and look back and say, why did I respond that way? Right? So what was going on? Was it lack of sleep? Am I just burning them in that oil? Am I working 24/7, not paying any amount of attention to the necessity of sleep, right? To improve the way I'm actually showing up. Is my diet out of control? Am I using the excuse that I don't have time to eat, so I'm kind of hyped up in caffeine all day, so I go home and I snap at my children, right? Is it that I haven't eaten for 7 hours? How often do I hear people say, listen, I know the nutritional program you gave me, but I got busy and I missed lunch, and I didn't eat till dinner time, right? So they had coffee and a bagel at breakfast to a drive-through restaurant, and they didn't eat for 8 or 9 hours. Well, your body can't function that way, and so there's a burden of responsibility that we have to take upon ourselves if we're going to start controlling the way we live our lives and actually have some influence. There's a great book called The Mood Cure. The Mood Cure was written by the psychologist out of California. I was introduced to her several years back. And the Mood Cure actually looks at individuals dealing with with various mood disorders, but generally through the world of addictions, right? So addictions and various types of drugs and alcohol. And before she actually began working with any of these individuals, the very first thing she did is start to work on their nutritional stability. She actually worked on their nutritional profile, got them eating a certain way. And before their sessions, she would actually have them take a variety of amino acids, right? Like tryptophan and L-tyrosine and a variety of amino acids that were prescribed to help their brains settle down. Because she knew that she couldn't talk to a malnourished brain and make any headway. Right? So the body actually has to be functioning properly. And it's amazing how much control we have and how much impact we have if we actually first look to ourselves and say, listen, am I hydrated? Am I nourished? Is my blood sugar level stable? Have I slept well? And if I'm taking care of all those things, perhaps maybe even 50% of the things that we think are struggles, that we think are challenges and traumatic events, are maybe not that big of a deal after all. Because when we're well and we care for ourselves, right? You said that over and over again, Elena. When I care for myself, self-care isn't just a matter of saying I respect myself, but I'm willing to look after this vessel, this 100 trillion cell vessel that's so impossibly complex and amazing. If I'm willing to look after this and actually put a good deal of effort, the way I look at the world will change in ways you couldn't even imagine. So I think sometimes the struggles that we have on the outside, and again, not feeling safe, well, not feeling safe is an adrenal response. And if we've lived in experiences, which all of us have, experiences where fight or flight has been a big part of our reality, then there's a nutritional cost to that. There's a metabolic cost to that. And so instead of actually just working on the psychological part of it, we need to spend at least as much time, if not more, on the physiological part of it. Because when I learned how to heal this thing here, right, my body's ability to withstand the stressors and challenges of the day, which there always seems to be, it's not going away, but my ability to respond properly and to recover from these daily struggles is more likely to occur when self-care is really paramount in my life. Right. So it's just, there's no really easy answer. And I think, there's a question that I used to pose years ago, like, why me? Like, why the hell me? I didn't do anything wrong. I didn't ask for any of this, right? I didn't ask for this abuse. I didn't ask for, I didn't ask to be afraid. Like, I just want to be a kid. I just want to be like any other kid and live and grow and have fun and have all those great experiences. And I hadn't none of them. And so I had to let go of the why me. And I kind of put it on and say, well, why not? You know, like I wasn't singled out by the universe. It's just it was a random placement in the universe. But I began to realize once I dropped the why me conversation, I said, well, it's still my life, it's still my body, it's still my responsibility. And once I leaned into it and I became interested and exploring, and Elena, listen to you speak, and it's so obvious this the depth that you've gone to and understanding. And I think that paints such a beautiful picture, and that's the responsibility that we have, because either we live by the old adage where hurt people hurt people, right? Either we use that as the excuse, or we take the burden of responsibility and say, listen, you know, the buck stops here. I'm not going to move this tragedy forward into any other lives beyond mine. And I'm willing to be a champion for my own life. And when I do so, when I'm willing to take that challenge on, I'm more than capable of actually potentially influencing the lives of thousands of people who've not yet made that decision. So, yeah, so these conversations are beautiful for all that.
Yeah, exactly. And you're right, David. We have to take responsibility, not only the emotional side and our health and our bodies, to eat well and, you know, exercise and all that is essential. Because I think, you know, all these illnesses and it's because of this trauma situation that we have been. But if we take responsibility to heal and accept what happened, we still have a life. We're not going to die now. We have to live, right? And continue our journey and forgive. Because the people that, let's say, took part in this journey of the trauma and all that, they have been taught also. So they were hurting too, and they didn't know. So they were affected, and they passed it out to us. So why should we blame them? Nobody's to blame. We just have to move on and just take responsibility and care for us individually, and then we can care for other people. And Nicole is going to tell us about the parents and the children, how they can respond in this.
Sure. So when I began my healing journey, and I started working on myself, because, you know, at some point you get and you just realize that your life is just not working out in the best possible way for you. And I began to start searching and asking questions and falling, and I say falling upon because that was literally what was happening. And looking back now, I realize is that when you're ready to hear something, when you're ready to grow and to change, the universe brings in the information you need to know. And you sort of kind of just stumble on it in that way. But suddenly I started realizing, and all the messages I was hearing, is that, you know, a lot of what was causing my difficulties in my today life had actually come from my childhood experiences. And that really, really spoke to me, because I knew I didn't have the best childhood experience. I knew I wasn't a happy child. And so I began to think, well, if it's all coming from childhood, why don't we today give our children the best childhood experience that we can possibly give them? And so that's what I would love to talk to you about tonight, is that how we can help our children feel safe. And so one of the best ways is to give a child a routine, so that it's always knowing what it's going to expect from its day. Now, you don't have to be rigid in that routine, because sometimes you cannot keep to your daily program. And then you would talk to your child about it and say, yes, today, normally at this time, we would be doing this and this, but we have an exception today. And you can talk them through it, not just suddenly say, oh, yeah, no, we're not doing that. We're going off over here to do this today. And then that's a surprise for the child. And, you know, like as a nursery school teacher, a lot of the parents would come and say to me, oh, you know, my child, how do I help him transition from staying at home and going off to coming to school every day? So for any new experiences, whether it's taking your child to the doctor, and that might feel scary because he doesn't want his arm pricked by needles and things like that, or going off to the dentist, or maybe having to spend a weekend with grandma and grandma. We're not used to doing that yet. So one of the best ways that I always found is that to role play that new experience at home. So you would set up the situation. So for in this example, maybe that your child is getting ready for a new school year or going off to school for the first time. So you could make a small part of your living room like to be the little classroom, little table, little chair, and the child can get an idea and a feeling of what the classroom is going to look like. And then, you can be the teacher, and you can go to the door and you can welcome the child in, and you can talk to him or her and explain what the day is going to be like, and welcome him in and get it to sit at the desk and everything else. And as you're doing it, then you get the child maybe to be the teacher, so that when it goes off to school, it's not scary and unknown. It's something that we've played and we've had fun with at home, and it's now something familiar to me. And this will go a long way in helping a child feel safe and secure in different unknown environments for it, because we might know what school is. We've been through it. We've seen many other children go off to school, but a child going off to school for the first time has no idea what school is and doesn't know what to expect. And all of a sudden, that safety that it's known as mom or dad takes it off to school and is just going to leave them there and go home again. And that is scary and frightening. So play with it, have fun with it, change the different roles, get a brother or a sister or a grandma or somebody else of the family, a friend, to be the mom dropping the child off at school, and just make it a fun experience for the child. And you can do the same, going to the doctor, going to the dentist, we're going off to grandma, what would we need? We would need our bag and all this, and we would pack, and off we would go, and and help the child familiarize the child more with what it's going to go and do. So a large part of, and with older children as well, I have many of my clients come to me and tell me and say to me, oh, my child is just, it covers up, it lies, and it's telling me all these stories, and I don't know what to do about it. I've told it it's bad to lie and it's bad to this, and, but it keeps carrying on with this. So one of the things that I really recommend that every family does is that create a family circle of trust and let the child know. So when I first came up with this idea and presented it to my children, we were going through a rather unfortunate incident with a nanny at home, and I needed my children to tell me the truth, but she had blackmailed them that if they kept lying for her, then she would give them extra screen time. And I needed to break that barrier, because the children were being loyal to somebody that I had chosen to look after them. And they had trusted me as their mom, that I would provide the proper person, a trustworthy person to look after them. Unfortunately, I kind of failed on that one, but we live and learn. So I went to them and I said to my sons, and I said, oh, I want to create a family circle of trust. And they go, well, what's that, Mom? I said, well, this is a circle where we can tell each other honestly and truthfully things that are going on in our life, and that there's going to be no punishments, consequences. Nobody's going to get upset. Nobody's allowed to shout. And what we're going to do then is try and find solutions to what's going on and how we could perhaps do things differently next time. So they looked at me rather weird and strange, and they go, okay, Mom. So I said, well, I would like to start. I said, because I have a confession to make. And then they go, well, what's your confession? I said, well, last night I got up in the middle of the night and I was really, really hungry. And I went down to the fridge, and unfortunately, the only thing I really, really wanted to eat were your chocolate bars. So I have to tell you, and I'm very, very sorry, but I ate your chocolate bars last night because I needed to find a way that I had done something wrong first. So now they don't know what to do. They love the chocolate bars in the fridge. It's each got their names on, so no one else can eat them. And so they go, oh, okay. So I said, well, can you help me decide what I could possibly have done differently for next time? Because I feel so guilty now. I feel absolutely terrible. I feel like I'm the worst mom in the world. I ate my children's chocolate, And so they said to me, well, maybe you could have had a biscuit, or maybe you could do this, or maybe eat the chocolate bar, but maybe you could buy us a new one. And so we talked and we brainstormed ideas, and we came up with a lovely idea. And I said, okay, so that's what I'm going to be doing next time. And so I said, well, since we're here and we're in this beautiful family circle of trust, is there anything that perhaps you would like to share? And slowly, it came out what the nanny had done and the nanny had said. And they had been carrying it for a week inside of their little hearts, not wanting to tell me because they didn't want to lose the extra screen time. So this became an invaluable tool. And even like a week after this, I went to them, and my oldest son came to me and said, Mom, could we have one of those family circle of trust? And I said, of course, what's going on? He said, well, you remember last year when the nanny was taking us to the swimming pool in the taxi, and I would give the nanny taxi money so that she could take them off to the swimming pool lessons. And I guess I remember that. And he says, well, we weren't going off to the swimming pool. She was taking us down the road here. We would bring us home, and instead of going in the taxi, she would use the taxi money and she would go and buy us donuts, and we would all get donuts to eat. And he had been carrying this a year in his heart. And it was really, really upsetting for him. And it was such freedom for him to be able to tell me in a safe space. And these are small things, little things and that. But, it's been now, it's been about 7 or 8 years now since we've had our family circle of trust. And today he's not an 8-year-old, 9-year-old boy coming to tell me about the nanny buying them donuts when she knows I don't want them to eat donuts. Now he's coming and he's calling upon the family circle of trust, and he's telling me, Mom, my friend started smoking and that was scary for me, and so we would talk about it. And it provided that space for him to be able to come and tell us things that it was scaring him, because that was scary for him, that, he knew that don't smoke, it causes cancer, it causes this, it causes that. And he's like 13, and now his friend is smoking, and that was scary. He had never seen a 13-year-old smoke before. And of course, 6 months down the line, we have another family circle of trust, and he came to tell me that he actually tried the cigarette from his friend, and it provided a wonderful open channel of communication for them to come and tell me anything that they want. And he knows that he'll never ever get in trouble, and that it's a space that we can talk about it, because children interpret things very, very differently to adults. And maybe, they're not telling us something small because they think it's huge. They don't know how to discern between what's a small thing and what's a big thing. So in doing this, that was what really, really stood out for me. I was absolutely amazed what they were calling the family circle of trust for. I mean, I did it for these kind of things, tried smoking, or my friend did this, or I saw that, or, I don't know how to deal with this particular issue in my life. That's what that was my intention, that when these sort of things came in, that they would be able to come and tell me. But especially when they were small, it was amazing what they were hiding from me, because they were scared to tell me, because they were scared of getting into trouble, or they thought that was the most terrible thing in the world, and it was hardly anything. And now there are some children who are going through really, really frightening things and not feeling safe to be able to go and tell somebody. And it's that same thing of discernment. They don't know that if somebody touches me in a wrong way, or somebody says something to me that makes me feel uncomfortable, it's okay for me to tell them, because the person doing that to them is putting the fear in, just like the nanny put the fear in the children that she would take away their screen time, or they wouldn't get extra screen time if they told me. And you know, people could be doing this to your children. So it's really, really important to create a safe space. Now, it is not for every little thing, and you can talk to them about it, but it's for every little thing that they feel scared to come and tell you. And they can come and tell you. I mean, of course, you know, a lot of parents say to me, oh, they'll just use that, they'll abuse that. And yes, they do, because they're children. But that's because you're the adult, is when you can say, all right, so we said that you would make your bed every day, and now you come to tell me in the family, and that if you didn't make your bed every day, then you know, you'd have to do an extra household chore, you'd have to clean your whole room up, or whatever it's going on in your house. And you know, and but then they go and they come and tell you, oh, Mom, I need a family circle of trust to tell you that I didn't make my bed today. Okay, and that's what children do, right? That they don't want to be making their bed every day. They don't want to be doing what they have to do. They don't want to be studying. They do want some extra screen time. They just want, you know, they don't have that, you know, why they should be doing it all yet. So they will be doing that. But then when it comes up once or twice, that is when you go, all right, so we've got the family circle of trust, and I'm glad that you came and told me on your own, and I didn't have to walk in and find your room in a big mess again. I said, because, you know, that's one of my triggers. And when I walk in and find your room in a big mess, and we've agreed that you're going to tidy it up and make your bed, then I get angry, you know? So I'm glad you've come to tell me, but let's see how we can change that now. All right, this is the family circle of trust. However, we have said that if you do not do it, this is the consequence. So now you get a choice. You either have the consequence or you make your bed. It's up to you. And you don't let them get away with little things like that. They will try. Of course they will try. So anyway, that is really, really important. And I think it's one of the, when I start working with parents, it's one of the first things I get them to create within their family. All right. And then we also have to look at our language when we are disciplining our children, because a lot of parents out there are disciplining their children through fear. So they're getting threatened, they will get shouted at, and then they, you know, they say, oh, you know, my child's been really well behaved and he's listening and he's doing everything he has to do. But is the child doing it because he understands the value in behaving well, making good choices for himself? Or is he doing it because, once again, he's in fear of being shouted at, fear of being punished? I was working with parents who, you know, when I started working with them, they have a young son. He was 10, 11 years old. And they both parents work very, really hard every day. And this little boy, because of his own insecurities, because they were very, very strict with him, and they would put the fear in him to try and control his behavior, because this is the difference between raising children, accepting them for who they are, trying to empower them to be their best selves, and then trying to control them, for them to be what we feel that they should be, for them to act and behave in ways that the parents think they should act and behave. And his parents were definitely in the controlling mode. And, you know, he would arrange a play date with a friend, and then maybe the school would phone and tell the parents, oh, you know, he did this and this and this at school. And the parents would go, right, you're punished, grounded, no play date with your friend, and you have to sit in your room alone. And he would be left until one of the parents came back from work, in the house alone in his room. You know, his brother was there, older brother was there, but he was not allowed out the room until the parents came home. And this is, you know, his behavior just kept getting worse and worse and worse. And that is when they came to me, because their school was phoning him nearly every day. And this way of parenting wasn't working, because the child was in fear all the time. fear that if I do this wrong, and he's got no judgment. He doesn't, why is this so bad? Why is this wrong? He just reacted as a child reacted. There was no discussion, no conversation with him, no walking him through it. Let's see what you chose this time. How would you choose differently? What would the different result bring? So that he can start to think and learn and make decisions for himself. And he was just like put in his room. Now, I don't, know that, if a prisoner in prison, the top punishment is to put him in confinement. And this is what they were doing to their little boy, but they're not realizing. They're thinking that they're being good parents by controlling their children. But it has the opposite result, because then the child is forever in fear. And a child that lives in fear has to go on the defense to protect himself. And that is when the child starts attacking. And that's when the behavior starts going really, really out of hand. If you want to know what's going on with your child, look at the behavior. Not to criticize it, not to judge it, not to try and control it, but get the messages. What is the need behind this behavior? And yes, so that's what I wanted to share with you tonight. I think that's the two most important things. One is to have a safe space in the house for the child to be able to come and tell you anything, and two is that as a parent we realize that we don't control the children's behavior. We try and have conversations, talk with them, and try and get them to understand the value in what their choices are. I'm a strong believer in small consequences appropriate to what's going on. So this is how I've raised my children as well, is that children need to be disciplined. We need to put on safe limits, because a child that isn't disciplined and a child that hasn't got any limits does not feel safe. We are creating very insecure children this way. We need the limits, we need the discipline, because the child has to rely on us, that we're in charge, we're the adults, and we're going to be there to help and support and to bring them up in this world. So that's what I wanted to share on the parenting side.
So interesting when you were speaking there, Nicole, a phrase came to mind that I heard years ago, that what parents repress, their kids express. And so, and the behavior of the child was it's always a reflection on the parent, but not as a form of guilt, but it's a form of, it's again, getting back to Elena, what we began talking about, that individuation. I remember Jordan Peterson, the very famous Canadian intellect. And he said most adults never really truly grow up until they have children, because they force you to pay attention to things that otherwise you would just walk by, you'd never notice. And that's really been another experience for me. There's so many things that I had to figure out, and I was horrified at my own reactions, my emotional tendencies to want to outburst in the presence of this little child. And then you have to kind of take a step back and go, what the hell's wrong with me? Like, what's going on? And children force adults to mature. And it's actually not, it can be really an extraordinary journey for both child and adult, because you both get to grow up at the same time, right? Not just the child, but the adult, and all our infantile behavior that hasn't been matured yet. And now we have a very beautiful reason in the presence of our children.
And as Nicole was speaking, I just want to add up to what Nicole said, and it reminded me a scene with my dad. It was his birthday, and I was bought him a present, and I was running inside the house, Dad, where are you? Like that. And I went to him and hugged him, and I was about to kiss him, but he just went like that. And I felt so, I started crying, because I'm I'm very enthusiastic person, and I grab people and kiss them, and then I had that reaction, and I just stepped back and I said, I was crying. I said, why don't you want me to kiss you? I mean, it's the normal thing I do with strangers. I see strangers in the street and I run and kiss them. And he just couldn't speak. And then I understood that that's how he was brought up in his family. He wasn't brought up they didn't give him much love, and he wasn't used to that. And and this the groups, Nicole is saying the trust group for the family is good, so we can express ourselves also what we have been through as children. If I was a child, I would definitely want to go back to my home now, if I had that opportunity, and sit with my parents and ask them what they have been through. I would want to know. And when I was researching to find for the generation of my family, my aunts, they weren't speaking. They were afraid to tell me. But when I went back, I found an uncle and an aunt, and she opened up and told me what was happening. It was like a lineage in this family, and it was really bad when I found that. And even my mother, because she has dementia now, she doesn't even remember me. But even uh, when she was well, she never told me these things. And it's good that parents and children must open up. And I'm living in this village 4 years now, and this was the village of my ancestors, and nobody told me. And I found an uncle in Facebook, and I didn't know him. I didn't know this uncle, and he said, "Hi, how are you doing?" And I said, "Hi, I'm fine." And he's my uncle, and he said, "I want you to come and meet your cousins because they're in your same age, and because you go out and they go out. I don't know, maybe you'll meet, and I don't want to have situations going on with you." And I met my cousins. They're in my age, and we go out together. And I didn't know that they were my cousins. I mean, parents and children must open up. And I had a conversation with my son a few days ago when we went out for coffee, and he was in pain, and he was trying to open up to me. And I said, I want to tell you something I never told you. And I told him things that I never opened up to tell him. And he said, "Really, Mom? Did you feel like that?" I said, "Yeah, me too." And suddenly, he smiled. And that's the thing, that if we can show our pains and scars to our children, it's going to be more easy for them when they're dealing with certain things. They're going to be like, "Let's go to Mom, let's go to Dad, and tell him what happened to me," even if it's too horrible. They will feel open up. And I think it's time for parents and children to have these meetings, as Nicole said, not only for what's happening, or the emotional side, but the real discussions. When I was your age, maybe you can share that your parents were neglecting you, they weren't paying attention. And now that I am a parent now, I don't want to be the way my parents are. I want to change this story, and I want you to participate in this and help me out. And with this, we're going to break the generational trauma that has been going on. And when I saw my son, and it helped him because he is having his issues. So by expressing myself and showing how much pain I've been through, he lit up and said, "Wow, you had the same like me." I said, "Yeah, I'm normal like you." And yeah, we should do that.
Definitely, yes. And I think that, I think one of the most important things to help a child feel safe is to just let there be unconditional love. Like it shouldn't ever be a matter that the child has to earn your love. That they should be able to rest in your love, and to know that no matter what they do, that you are always going to be there, that you're always going to love them. And it's one of the messages that I tell my children often, you know, and I think this is also very, very important, is that let children know that when they do something that you disapprove of, that it's not the child that you disapprove of, but it's the deed, the action, the choice that the child made. I always tell my children, I said, you know, I don't like your choices right now. You are not your choices, and you can choose something different to do. You didn't have to choose that way of reacting. That lies on you. The choice was yours, and I'm letting you know that I don't like that choice right now, but I love you.
And you hug him and kiss him, because children needs a lot of hugs and kisses, and we also do. Yes, of course we do. But
yes, you know, my oldest son, he's really, and the younger one too, but the older one can pick up if I'm upset or anything, and he'll often come and he says, Mom, I think you need a hug right now. And then he'll give me a big hug, and you know, he's right, I just need a hug right then. So, and that is because that's coming from me as a parent and his father as a parent, that we give them lots of hugs, you know. And you know, as he's 14-15-year-old now, he's trying different things, not coming home when he should be exactly on time, and that, you know. And often before I will talk to him, I'll say to him, all right, I'm so happy you're home, you know, let me give you a hug. Hello. All right, now let's talk about this time, you know, that you arrived. But before I get, you know, talk to him about that, is to give him a hug and to start the conversation with that. And so that there's no feelings. He knows that I'm not angry with him.
Yeah.
And I think that's very, very important. And that goes a long way in helping a child feel safe.
Yeah, it's so interesting. We were growing up. There was 8 of us living in the house at one time. So and so your kids raise themselves in that environment. Parents just feed and clothe them. But my father, you know, I didn't figure this out until many years later on. But and he was you know, I'm 6 feet tall, and when I stood next to him, he made me look very small, right? And so he's a very big man and very angry and very frustrated. He had, you know, frustration. I think, we kind of think that because of the frustration of trying to feed that many kids and generate that kind of revenue, the kind of money to support a family that size. And you know, he employed people as well. So all that frustration, he just didn't manage very well. And there was at times that we would go to bed right after dinner, just so we didn't have to run into him. Because we knew when he got back from work, he was not going to be the nicest person to deal with. And so we wanted to be far away from this possible, which meant going to bed at 6:30 at night, just to avoid him, right? And it's, and it's just that, you know, and I think we just don't understand, you know, we don't understand the impact, and we're not aware of this emotional state that we're in, and we just allow it to continue, this chaos and frustration and anger, and we just let it continue on and on and on, and just wreaks carnage in the world around us. And it's, you know, and there's a difference between feeling guilty about your actions and feeling responsible for your actions, right? Or feeling shame for your reactions. So, you know, that's a parent's experience where they've acted very improperly towards their children from emotional outbursts. Shame, living in shame around that behavior won't compel you to do anything, right? Feeling guilty is actually not so bad, because guilt actually lets you know that you've done something wrong. Shame, you'll just bury it, and shame will be the bribing of your children, the giving of gifts when you've done something wrong towards your children. But living into the responsibility, and yes, you know, a bit of guilt will go a long ways, but learning how to amend that. And it's something I've learned with my own kids, is that, you know, I've been self-employed for many, many years, and I've witnessed, my son was so good that he knew when I was manipulating. He was just so smart, right? That he knew when I was trying to bribe him or trying to manipulate him because of something that I said or did wrong in the moment. And in an instant, he picked up on it. And so, like, they're clever little beings. They're not children, though they may not be as emotionally mature, they're not stupid, and they'll pick up on these things and they'll learn very quickly. And so, so Nicole, your idea of this circle of trust, honesty with your children is always the best policy, because they'll pick up on it. They may not say anything, but they'll know when you're not being authentic, and they'll play that to their advantage, and ultimately be to the disadvantage of the entire family.
And David, if you had a chance to go back to becoming small again, and your dad was there, and you ask him why is he reacting, I'm sure he would tell you a very sad story. Definitely. That something happened to them, and he never could express it, and he expresses it in anger and all that. And anger is fear, and fear is it is connected to trauma. Something happened to him, definitely, and he was like that. We're born like little angels, and then as we grow up, it's the environment that makes us. So if parents are listening, and like if I had the chance, my dad is not alive, so my mom cannot respond. So if you have your parents and you're in an adult age, you can go back to your parents and ask them what happened in your lives, and share their pain, and then you can understand why they reacted in as you were in your childhood, the ways they reacted. And that's why I said, as I was speaking, that we shouldn't blame them, because after I got to sit by myself and kind of research the things, I said, oh my God, I wish I had my dad here today, and to tell him that I love him and that I don't blame him anymore. And I think that's the part of healing. It's just, just saying these words.
Elena, both my father and mother died last year, but 2 years ago, my father was never a great communicator. Brilliant man, but not when it comes to this sort of thing. So I wrote him a letter. And in fact, I sat down and wrote letters to a bunch of different individuals. And basically I said, it's in the letter, I said, listen, your job was not to be a parent. Your job was to get me here, and I'll take it from here. So I kind of, I wasn't asking for an apology from him. I wasn't, saying you ruined my life. I was, you put me out of the street. I didn't go any of those things. I just said, you don't owe me an apology. We're both here now. I said, so your job was to get me here. And from these challenges that I've experienced, it's given me a career path in which to help other people move through this process much more gracefully. So so it was an important, it was part of my boot camp, basic training in life, was to go through all this chaos and to be able to develop a career and helping people transcend it. But actually writing the letter was actually really cathartic for me. He didn't really respond a whole lot to it because it's in his nature not to. But definitely it closed that chapter inside my mind. So there was nothing residual hanging over it. And all I said to him is that for the amount of years that you have left, you do extraordinary work, and just do what you were put here to do. And I left it at that. And so it was a graceful ending to it. But I didn't have to go back and look for resolution. I didn't have to go back and find a bunch of answers of why he did that. I just really let it go. And again, like as you said, the understanding is that there's a whole bunch of circumstances that brought him to the place he was in his life. And my condemnation of him would serve no value whatsoever. Right. And so it was so perfect that I did that 2 years before he passed, because we never would have had that conversation. But I was able to close that chapter while he was alive. And I think that was really important for me to do that.
Yeah, I do letter writing too, and it's very healing, just releasing whatever it is and just accepting the situation. We have to accept and move on. That's it. Do you have anything else to say? Nicole, you want to share something?
Yes, I just wanted to say that, one of the most important things, you know, I always, because the children will come back to me from school and they go, oh, so-and-so did this to me and so-and-so did that to me. And, you know, my teacher was angry about this and that and that. Is that I try and teach them that they, whatever experiences that they are living, they are 100% responsible. And that's a hard lesson for a little child. I don't go into too much depth about it, but I do start now. I'm threading that message into the situations that are happening. And I'm going, all right, so, you know, you could see that your friend got angry with you and maybe he did this to you. All right, so, but he didn't do this to you. Something's going on, and for some reason, this has happened. So we can be angry with our friend and we can say it's all his fault, or we can accept responsibility for the situation. We can forgive ourselves for bringing it into our lives, and we can let it go. We had a lovely ceremony the other day with my youngest son, because a friend of his at school had gotten really, really angry with him and had pushed his head against a wall. And so he had got a bump on his head and he had cut his lip. All right. And he was, of course, very angry and not ready to listen to anything. And I just let him sit with the anger, because that's not wrong. Sometimes we just need to sit with those hard, uncomfortable feelings and feel them. To me, what is wrong is when we stay in them for too long. I can't let it fester inside of him. So, you know, a couple of hours later, when he was ready to go to bed, he came and he snuggled up next to me, and we did some tapping about what had happened, and we got him calmed down. And then the next day I said to him, all right, now we need to do the forgiveness ceremony. And he said to me, I don't want to forgive him. I said, if you choose, and it comes back down to our choices, I said, you can choose to forgive, but I don't want you to forgive him. I want you to forgive you. I want you to forgive you for bringing the situation into your life. You know, and if you want to forgive him at some point, you can, but you don't have to. And even if you decide that you do want to forgive him, you can decide whether you want to carry on hanging out with him or not. I said, it's all very, very different and separate things. I said, but you cannot carry all of these hard feelings inside of you. And they were going off to a sports event the next day. And he said to me, I'm not going because this child's going to be there and I don't feel safe because the teachers didn't do anything to stop him. So I said, again, that's your choice. You know, you can choose the situation to affect you, and now you're not going on a school outing that you were really, really looking forward to, or you can choose to go on the school outing, and you know, you can trust the teachers, or we can speak to the teachers and to sit and tell them how you're feeling. But he chose not to go, so that was fine. And so what we did then, we got pieces of paper and we wrote all his feelings, everything he really wanted to tell the child, not the nice things, not the forgiving things, but how the child had hurt him, had betrayed him, and he was calling this child all sorts of names and things like that. And we wrote them all on pieces of paper. And then I took the pieces of paper and we went to the fireplace. You can get a container, a metal container, and then we burnt them. And as we burnt them, we said, I release this from myself. I release this. So he's no longer carrying this in his heart and carrying all of these things around with him. And it was, you know, and that's the message I want the children to get, is that they are 100% responsible for their lives. Because when we blame someone else, the person doesn't change, or the person doesn't behave or act in the way we want, we have no power over that other person. We can't force them to behave in a certain way to us, you know, but we can change our reactions to what's going on. And, you know, he didn't go to the football thing. They all got signed tops from the football team. So he was so upset about that afterwards. And he decided that there was an end of the school year party and he wasn't going to go to that party either. But he decided that maybe he should go to the party. He said, because I decided not to go because of this little boy and I missed out. And now maybe I'll miss out again. So that's what I love about natural consequences for their actions, that they make a choice. I let him make those choices for himself, but then he saw the result of that choice. And now he can course correct. He can make a different choice for himself.
Exactly. We
And
all have choices. We all have choices, either to stay unsafe or become safe.
Yeah.
That's it.
Okay.
So I would like
Elena,
to
would you like to close with a little round of tapping that people can do if they are feeling
yeah,
unsafe?
of course.
But,
we like
choose to feel safe.
Okay. We need
All
that.
right. Okay, so let's put our hands here on our heart chakra and take a deep breath in and out. And we start tapping here, and you can be my echo. And we can say, even though
No.
this awful thing has happened,
this awful thing has happened,
and I am feeling quite fearful now.
And I'm feeling quite fearful now.
I choose to feel safe right now.
To feel safe right now.
Even though I'm feeling a bit scared.
I'm feeling a bit scared.
And I'm not feeling very safe.
And I'm not feeling very safe.
Right here and right now.
Right here, right now.
I choose to feel safe.
I choose to feel safe.
Even though this awful thing has happened.
This awful thing has happened.
And I'm feeling a bit scared.
I'm feeling a bit scared.
Right here and right now.
Right here, right now.
I'm safe.
I'm safe.
All of this fear.
All of this
fear.
I'm quite scared.
I'm quite scared.
I'm feeling fearful.
I'm feeling fearful.
I'm feeling scared right now.
I'm feeling scared
right now.
All of this fear in my body.
All of this fear in my body.
I have so much fear in my body.
I have
so much fear in my body.
I'm really feeling scared.
I'm already feeling scared.
And I don't know what's going to happen to me.
I don't know what's going to happen.
I'm going to choose.
I'm going to choose.
To feel a bit safer.
To feel a bit safer.
I'm going to choose.
I'm going to choose.
To release some of this fear.
To release some of this fear.
I'm going to choose to feel safe right now.
I'm going to choose to feel safe now.
Releasing these feelings of fear.
Releasing these feelings of fear.
Choosing to feel safe.
Choosing to feel
safe.
I'm choosing to feel safe right now.
I'm choosing to
feel safe right now.
Okay, breathe in and out. Yeah.
Oh, it's so nice. Yeah.
Yeah. So in this way, we can help calm our nervous system down, take us out of that fight or flight. And once we've done that, we can start finding solutions to what's going on.
Exactly.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, all of you. And I want to say thank you to our viewers that are watching us, and see you in another episode next week.